See, I'm riding on a sidewalk here because this Saskatchewan drive really doesn't allow me to cross it safely, and I have to get to somewhere where I can. And I don't want to go in a car lane because I don't feel safe there. And I'm like a decades-long cyclist, so I can understand anyone who doesn't want to go do this. So now I got a light here I can cross, and really this isn't the way that I was planning on going, but right now this is just the way that Edmonton is. It's a very poor design. Goes down the hill here. There's nothing for bikes on this hill going down that way, but see, now I got a green light and I can cycle along this route. I'm headed toward the high-level bridge. So I stopped here because of this fantastic view. You can see the downtown skyline right behind me. This is Edmonton, guys. I mean, it's really a very beautiful city, and thanks to the river valley and all the trails that go through it, the bike transportation network actually isn't that bad. If your destination, wherever you're going, is anywhere near that river valley, you have ways to go on your bike. The problem is when you're going to the outskirts, sometimes the bike lanes just aren't there, and you have to know which street you could go on in order to stay on a bike lane as long as possible, and then where it's safest to navigate your way. The connections are not all there the way you would wish for, but in general, we're making a lot of progress. There are some roads that are being completely reconstructed to accommodate bike lanes that were never there before, and some older bike lanes are being improved. But you know, it takes a long time to just have a bike network that is safe for everybody and that will actually get people who are too scared to ride in traffic to hop on their bikes and make their commute by bicycle, turn it into a regular thing. So I found another beautiful spot. Behind me is the Walterdale Bridge that's been built, I don't want to say 5 years ago or so. It was relatively new. There was an older one there before, and it's just got a fantastic view from there. Now, what I wanted to talk about in this video, it's the bike lanes. The bike infrastructure in Edmonton, it has over the past few years been improving tremendously. It is still not where it needs to be, but there are encouraging signs, including a couple of years ago, the city decided to dedicate $100 million toward the implementation of their bike plan, which includes a network of new bike lanes that is under construction already. So what's not to like? I mean, maybe it's not all perfect, but compared to what we've had before, is definitely a big step ahead. Now, I've heard on the news and I've heard through other people's YouTube videos that in the city of Toronto, which is in a different part of Canada, but it's Canada's largest city, it's in a province where there's a conservative government at the moment, same as in Alberta, and they are very much in support of the car. I want to call it car dependency. The city of Toronto has been very progressive, and they have installed bike lanes in some major routes. Bike lanes are polarizing. So there is a community that felt like they weren't consulted enough, so they lobbied the province to maybe get rid of the bike lanes, and I think this is actually what's happening now. There has been new legislation passed that any new bike lane that is being built anywhere in the province, but is targeting mostly Toronto, but anywhere in that province, it cannot take away car lanes where it would cause gridlock or something like that. So, like in the real world, if you're going to put a bike lane on an existing artery, on an existing road, sometimes it's inevitable to take away a car lane. That's just because the space that's there. Now, if you have 3 lanes in each direction for motorized traffic, a sidewalk, and nothing for the bikes, well, if this is the only road or street where you could put the bike lane, because perhaps anything adjacent or nearby would not be connecting enough or whatever, then there's no choice but to take space away from the cars. So if you're gonna be committed to building a bike infrastructure that serves people with connections to where they need to go, well, oftentimes that'll be the choice. You know, you have to take away space from the car traffic, and there's usually a lot of backlash to that, even if it's just parking. But if it's traffic lanes that perhaps during rush hour could be backed up or whatever, if you already have like 3 lanes or so and they're backed up, what difference is it going to make if now there's only 2? Perhaps it's going to encourage somebody who is stuck in that traffic to take their bike to do their commute instead. Well, then you're actually improving the gridlock, and I think that's left out of the equation completely. The argument that I heard from the side of the government is that there's only about 2% of all the trips within the city are made by bicycle, and about 60% by motorized means like a car, so that the bike lanes only help a small percentage, like 2% of the traveling public. Can you see what the problem is with that? First of all, if you're going to say that the bike lane only serve a minority, then you have to look at the cause for that too. Because if you don't have any safe bike infrastructure, like basically zilch, then you cannot expect people to use their bikes. And if you have an attitude that thinks about bicycles as some kind of toy or some kind of sporting article, which I believe actually the bike industry in North America is partially at fault for, then the idea of using a bike for transportation might be the furthest thing from your mind. Look, I'm 62 years old. I learned riding a bike probably when I was about 5. I can tell you from my heart and my brain that a bicycle is a very, very good means of transportation. I mean, I've been coast to coast in this country on a bicycle alone, plus a couple of ferries. But what I'm trying to say is that you can go anywhere on a bike. You can haul stuff on a bike. As a means of commuting within the city, if you have the proper infrastructure, there's nothing better than a bike. Even in January and February, you will have days where the temperatures go above freezing, and you will have days where the sunshine is just as beautiful as today, but it'll be minus 10 degrees. Like, it will be way below freezing, but if you dress for it, you can be comfortable on a bike. Cycling through the winter isn't a big deal. You can have studs on your bike for the days when there's ice. Well, it's all possible, guys. It's all possible. And it actually takes vehicles off the road if it's done properly. Now, in Toronto, I was shocked to find out about that the provincial government actually published some kind of statement that certain bike lanes that are already established, that are built up within the city of Toronto, they are protected bike lanes. They are beautiful bike lanes, and people are using them. But there has been opposition, and the government has now committed to taking out these bike lanes. And they're overreaching their jurisdiction, basically, because it's a city jurisdiction, but now they're interfering with that. The provincial government is doing that. And that is actually something that here in Alberta, I wouldn't put it past our provincial government to try and do the same. For now, I am grateful to the City of Edmonton, where they are actually going through with the bike plan. But I can also see that there's opposition here too. You know, as soon as anything about the city comes up, where somebody is complaining, let's say about our transit system, our LRT system. There are lots of groups on Facebook where people share experiences about that. Well, you'll always see comments about how bad the mayor and the city council is and how they are focused on the bike lanes only, when that couldn't be further from the truth. They're actually focused on a whole lot of different things, but the attention, or for some, in some people's mind, the bike lanes is all they think about. It's so polarizing. It's like some people hate the fact that others will make a choice and use their bicycle for transportation. And I don't understand it, quite frankly. I'm actually grateful for the appearance of electric bikes in recent years, because there has been increased pressure and increased demand for bike infrastructure as a result. And even those scooters that you can rent and just park and dump anywhere, well, I think they probably have contributed to the demand. So in a way, I don't really like those scooters at all, to be honest. Like, to me, they're being dumped just about anywhere they could go. People abuse them, and it's really a disaster. I can't understand how any company can actually afford to put something like that out as a rental. But, you know, as long as it increases the demand for bike infrastructure, I am all for it. It's good. Let's people have their fun with them and whatnot. Like, when I see what's going on in Toronto, I'm worried. I'm honestly worried that those heads will prevail that would rather have everybody sit in the car, work their way through traffic, then the solution for gridlock will be to build 4 more lanes. And in Toronto, that same premier, Doug Ford, actually came up with an idea to make a tunnel from one end of the city to the other that goes underneath the largest highway in North America that has, I don't know how many lanes, but that highway is a disgrace to Canada. It's a sign of the stupidity of the times. I'm not saying it was stupid to build it when they did, because nobody could possibly foresee. Back in the day when they built those roads, the idea was that, you know, there's a certain number of cars that need to be accommodated, and this highway is going to be more than enough for decades to come. Experience has shown, the sign of the times have shown that you put more lanes there and there's going to be more demand. More people are going to get a car and drive because it's the best way. There has been nothing else developed. The transit system is stagnated. Bike infrastructure is spotty at best, and like maybe a decade ago it wasn't even present. What can you expect? If you build around the city, there's more and more population, there are going to be more cars. Well, eventually that comes to a point where we cannot have more cars. It's just, there's a limit to this, you know. We're not just polluting the air because the cars have combustion engines, but even if all these cars had zero emissions, we're still using up all this land to build up, to pave it over so that people can drive. And it's dangerous for everybody who doesn't choose to drive. And that's why there has to be a complete turnaround. And this government in Ontario that decided to take out bike lanes and make it harder to build new bike lanes, in my opinion, they need to go. Now, this is a little rant here. It's a little departure from what I usually do. And you've seen me rebuild a truck all summer and fall long. And yes, I drive. I drive out of necessity. I couldn't run my business without a vehicle. But the honest truth is that I use my truck for work. I will not use it for running errands, for running here and there. Like, unless I have something to transport, and it's got to be something fairly big, I can go anywhere in this city by bicycle. But I got to be honest too. Bicycle infrastructure in Edmonton is not perfect. I recently had the desire to go to a rec center that's about 5 kilometers from our house. And the reason I did not go there and I chose another rec center was simply because the bike infrastructure didn't seem safe enough for me. But that'll be it for this video. Just a little rant. I hope you enjoyed it anyways. And I encourage you to leave your comments. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I think we should try to find common ground, because we're all, when we travel, whether it be for work, running errands, whatever, you know, commuting, and we drive, well, we all get stuck in the same traffic. Now, if I find a way to do whatever trip I have to do on my bicycle, in Edmonton, it's highly likely that I'll be on a different path than on the path that you're on with your car. So, am I not doing a good thing by leaving the car at home and taking the bike? You let me know. And I'll see you very soon in another video.